This is Chambers 19, bringing you our first episode of a segment we're calling The Anchor, which is just going to be taking some of your favorite science fiction tech and kind of grounding it in reality with some of the experts that we know here. So to introduce my expert today, this is Maximus. And Maximus, if you want to tell us a little bit about why you think you're an expert on what we're going to be discussing today.
All right. I'm in the Navy. I served on a submarine for the last 3 years. And I've also got a bachelor's in engineering, systems engineering, and I'm a qualified nuclear engineer. So I do have some background there.
Nice. So today we're actually going to be talking about Metal Gear Ray, which is the second reiteration of the Metal Gear. It was actually made as a deterrent to stop in Metal Gear Rex, if you guys are familiar with Metal Gear Solid. So because we all know, or some of us know, that Metal Gear Ray is an aquatic, submersible machine, I figured who better to talk about it than a Navy guy. So we just got a couple of questions we're going to ask, and we're just going to see how close it comes to reality, I guess.
So the first question I'd like to ask is, based on the material that I've showed you so far concerning Metal Gear Ray, what do you think Metal Gear Ray is made of?
Well, looking at real-world equivalents that we have, I can't talk too much about U.S. submarines. Most of that information is classified, but the Russians have done a lot of research and development, trying new things. And one thing we know about that they did is they created something called the Alpha-class submarine. It was made of titanium, and according to the Wikia for the Metal Gear Ray, it was also made of titanium. So I think that's pretty good. Titanium is super high strength material, also super expensive. But I think in the future, as we get manufacturing costs down, I think titanium is definitely
pretty plausible.
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
So you think that titanium is a flexible metal too? They could have changed it to make all types of crazy designs, kind of like the way the Metal Gear Ray looks with its super sleek, kind of amphibious design.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems they run into today. But I think probably it's a ceramic titanium alloy for the Ray, so I think they probably are doing some shaping stuff, the ceramic added to make it a little more shapeable.
Nice. Yeah. So somewhat of its skeleton is believable there, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so based on what you've seen, again with the design, so if Metal Gear Ray was underwater, what do you think some top speeds it would reach?
Well, going back again to the Alpha-class submarine, its top speed was 41 knots, which is about 47 miles an hour.
Okay.
That's pretty fast. I think the Ray, though, based on a couple of other things we're going to talk about, it being able to jump out of the water, I think the Ray's going to have to get a little bit higher speeds than that. So it's going to need a lot of horsepower there to get it going that fast. But I think the Ray is probably top speed. I'm thinking probably about something like 65, 75 knots.
Okay, yeah, so pretty fast. Based on what you were saying earlier, makes me think of my next question. For those you know, Metal Gear Ray is infamous for coming from water to land, just with a huge kind of grand entrance, really leaping, making a big landing there. So I know that he's crunched the numbers, and there's a formula, I'm going to slap that up here real fast, that shows you exactly how fast you'd have to be going, but go ahead.
Yeah, so Ray, again, according to the wiki, it's 22 meters tall. So I'm just rounding up, going 22 and a half, and then saying it just jumping its height out of the water, over its height. So we're saying it's jumping 45 meters in the air, and so the speed required to leave the water and get 45 meters high, that speed required would be 58 knots, which is about 67 miles an hour. So again, that goes into what we're talking about with it being a top speed at 75 knots probably.
Sure. It's funny. I almost think of do you watch Shark Week? Are you Shark Week?
Yeah.
So you got the great white that shoots way down, breaks the surface tension when he takes out the seal or whatever. So that's kind of what I think of as far as Metal Gear Ray goes. Okay, so all that engine horsepower's got to come from somewhere, right? So the Metal Gear Ray, I'm curious what you think it may run on its internal power source.
Yeah, I think in terms of advanced technology, really high top speeds, and it being able to kind of indefinite travel, that kind of thing, something that would be a reliable source of energy, I think it's absolutely got to be nuclear powered. So it's going to be some sort of nuclear power. Probably a smaller reactor than the things we see today. It's got to be a little bit smaller, better cooling system, more advanced cooling system, and more compact. But that's going to allow it to achieve these top speeds.
Yeah. So you say smaller, and again, we should allude to the fact that according to Wiki, Metal Gear Ray has very specific dimensions compared to a typical U.S. sub. Obviously, Metal Gear Ray is much smaller. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. So we talked already. It's 22 meters tall. That's let's see how far. 22 meters is 72 feet, so 72 feet tall, and it is 32 meters wide, which is 104 feet wide. And then again, going back to the Alpha class submarine for the Russians, that's kind of our baseline standard we're using. So the Alpha class submarine is actually a lot thinner. It's only 9.5 meters wide. 31 feet, but it's a whole lot longer, so almost 300 feet long.
Yeah. So interesting. And, that's pretty fast for something so big. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So for those who, again, Metal Gear Ray has 2 reiterations. In the first Sons of Liberty game, it's actually powered by a man in a cockpit, and I think it's Ocelot and Liquid Snake. But eventually, in some of the later reiterations, you see later on the Metal Gear install, like Metal Gear Solid 4 and Revengeance, it's actually run by artificial intelligence. And Maximus was telling me earlier that submarines, most of their technology is actually manual and not automated, and there's reasons why for that, of course.
Yeah, so I think actually probably the Ray's biggest weakness, if I were attacking the Ray, it is all automated, so it's probably very susceptible to viruses, hacking, that kind of thing. And I think so on normal submarines, most things are done by crew members. So you have something like 120 to 140 crew members, depending on the size of the submarine. And all those guys do specific tasks to keep the submarine running 24/7. So I think for everything to be automated, like I said, I think that would be advantageous. A lot less people, obviously, but I think we would also be susceptible to
just take it over.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we've jumped around a little bit here, but again, you were alluding to how deep some of these submarines can go because of what they're made of, that titanium.
Yeah.
And again, knowing how much pressure it can take, how deep do you think Ray could dive if it wanted to dive?
Well, talking about titanium, so rumors about the Alpha class submarine, nothing substantiated. Rumors where it could go. Hearsay about Alpha class could go 800 meters.
Okay.
Which is 2,600 feet under the water. And let me just pull up real quick how much pressure that's going to be. Let's see here. 1,170 pounds per square inch, approximately.
Okay.
1,170.
So
it would be ridiculous.
Yeah. And so, based on the power supply that you were talking about earlier with the nuclear reactor on the inside, how long do you think it can run on one excursion?
Well, I think the Ray, having a nuclear reactor that needs very little refueling, very not unlimited, but I think it'd probably go top speeds through the water for about 5 years straight if it wanted to. So I think you have a lifespan of the reactor. Advanced technology is maybe 30 or 40 years for that reactor, depending on how much fuel they load in it.
Yeah. So Metal Gear Ray would be a good houseboat, in your opinion. You could live in it.
You could live in it.
You could just traverse out to the middle of nowhere.
Whatever you want to do,
do some fishing. Yeah, that's all.
That's all you need is food.
Yeah.
Another advantageous part of it being AI is that you don't need to resupply the crew. It's all AI.
Yep.
So they can go for as long as they need it to.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sure you guys know that some of the media, as far as Metal Gear Ray, he leaps out of the water, and of course then all his guns and weaponry becomes deployed. Just looking at the wiki page here, it says Metal Gear Ray's got some machine guns, anti-tank, anti-ship, water jet cutter, and the cluster missiles. The one I want to talk about in particular is the water cutter. That's the one you'll notice in the first version of Metal Gear Ray when he opens his mouth. And it almost looks like a laser, but it's actually compressed water. Yeah, so if you guys remember correctly, the compressed water jet actually cuts its way out of steel, and I was just curious how plausible you think that is. Compressed water, and
we actually already have that technology today. Water and it cut through things like stainless steel, so I think it's absolutely plausible you can get water to that pressure and that force to cut through stuff.
Yeah, if you guys look real quick, just in the cinematic sequence here, it's coming up from the bottom of the ship, and it cuts its way all the way out and basically swims to the surface. So, again, that's pretty cool to figure out that some of it is somewhat realistic. Again, we shouldn't forget about some of the other weaponry, with the machine guns and the anti-tank and anti-ship. I'm sure with like a submarine, obviously on the surface there are things like machine guns. No, it's all okay.
No.
All right, interesting. So no machine guns. It's strictly all water-based. Yeah, okay, good deal. Definitely interesting. I guess in your opinion, though, something like machine guns, do you think that it could travel from water to land and still be functional right when it comes out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, even if it had something like machine guns, all of these armaments that it has would be contained within the hull of the ray,
Sure.
and then as it transitioned to land, it would be able to deploy those externally outside of its pressure hull and
Right.
use it to shoot.
And stay bone dry, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready to rock and roll. Okay, Maximus, in your opinion, based on what you've seen today and the media that you've been exposed to as far as Metal Gear Ray goes, do you think it's plausible that something like that could exist in the next 50 years?
Well, I don't know about the actual design of the ray itself, but in terms of the AI, its weapon capabilities, and maybe propulsion capabilities, I think that's absolutely something that could be developed in the next 50 years.
Sure. So you heard it here first, guys. Run for your lives, right? Because Metal Gear Ray's coming, and it's definitely going to happen in the next 50 years. It's been single confirmed. Okay, so this has been Chambers 19 and my special guest Maximus. We are shredded nerds, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you this time. We'll see you all the times.
All the time.